Rangers will accept an immediate transfer ban. But then you would imagine they wouldn't put a foot wrong. So therefore it's not actually a ban. So I think a compromise is, alright, then you can use this transfer window, but then you miss the next one. Next two, isn't it? Christmas and then the next summer.
Yeah.
But then if you're in the second division, if you win the title, you're halfway through the second division. Surely Rangers, if they're not winning the first division by that time, they've got the Christmas one, and they would get enough players in, you would imagine, to win that title. So I think that's a fair compromise.
But then the others, playing devil's advocate there, the others who are lining up to kick Rangers will say, why compromise, why bend the rules for them, you know?
Yeah, well, I mean,
no, because Rangers have already argued in a court.
You don't get to the point where you draw a line and say,
yeah.
You know, Rangers are different. If Rangers dig their heels in and say, we are not accepting that transfer ban, any kind of transfer ban, because Lord Gwen in the court session said it's not in the SFA's list of sanctions. But the only three things left are out of the Scottish Cup. Will Dunfermline get thrown out for registrated team lines or something? Well, Rangers crimes are much worse than that, so you couldn't say you're out of the Scottish Cup, because that wouldn't be fair on Dunfermline. The two others are temporary suspension of your membership or complete termination of your membership, and that does nobody any good. Stuart Regan's the man who shot Rangers in that case.
It was interesting to hear Jim Traynor admit that Rangers' crimes are much worse than those of Dunfermline, who fielded an ineligible player. A clerical error. I'm sure they felt that he was signed. Maybe he didn't meet the 5 o'clock deadline. Maybe there was a Jim Farry type error. And we know the kinds of errors Jim Farry used to make on a daily basis, particularly when we think of Cadete of Celtic. And we know that Farry was forced to resign over his bias towards this poisonous reprobate club. Still looking for something in the middle. We don't want the extremes of Rangers being banned. We don't want the extreme of Rangers being hit financially. For goodness sake, Rangers have no money. We don't want we don't want Rangers to be let off. My goodness, they haven't been let off. There's a transfer ban hanging over them. But the argument is clear. This transfer ban must be resisted. Rangers need to tell the SFA, the SFL and the SPL, we are not having it. Go ahead. Go ahead. You've already said that. The great thing about such a decision, such a momentous decision, would be the efforts of Stuart Regan, Neil Doncaster and David Longmuir to get Rangers to squeeze themselves into common sense by accepting a much lesser penalty. They will now be forced to look at the other two options, and the options are suspension from the SFA, no membership of the SFA, no membership of the SFL because they won't accept the rules being laid down to them. They have no position in the SPL currently, so suspension from all of those, or expulsion from all of those. Expulsion meaning bye-bye Rangers. Rangers are no more. Rangers are dead. Rangers are gone. Rangers are a dead parrot. He is no more. Let's move to the next part of this imbecilic podcast.
But if say you were a Celtic fan, would you think it was important then?
I think if you're a Celtic fan, you would probably be looking at Rangers being punished by having the title stripped off them, yeah.
If you're a Celtic fan, Celtic wasn't the only club who lost out because Rangers were cheating, because Rangers were financially doping their club, because Rangers were evading income tax, evading VAT, evading national insurance contributions, and sneaking people into the Scottish game illegally. When Rangers were a really poor side, Aberdeen and Dundee United emerged, and places like St Mirren had massive increases in their crowds because Rangers fans simply weren't going to Ibrox. Kilmarnock would have got bigger crowds. My own cousin used to go to Airdrie. Why? He lived in Shotts. Airdrie was close. But Airdrie's also tainted, which is one of the reasons why Jim Valentine, the chairman of Airdrie, is the chairman of the SFL, or as he is assistant chairman of the SFL behind David Longmuir. But the fact is that he's sitting there as a Rangers fan, as a man who is out there looking for money for the Rangers fans fighting fund. But when Rangers were a poor side, clubs like Airdrie, Hamilton, Motherwell, Dumbarton, Clyde, Partick Thistle, St Mirren, Kilmarnock and Ayr, all of which is within an easy commute for Rangers fans. But if Rangers were not doing anything in the Premier League, why would these fans want to travel all the way to Glasgow and watch their team lose? I did indeed sit in 2 matches against Dundee where Rangers gate was under 7,000. I took my kids, I took my wife, because we wanted to see a game of football. And while I'm a Celtic fan, I went to see a good football game. Celtic were out of town that day, and we went to see a football match. Is it so strange that someone who loves football would go to see a tight game? I don't think many Rangers fans would do the same, because Rangers were playing away, would go to Celtic Park and sit in the stands and watch the game. I did this, and my wife came along and my daughter came along, and we had some fun. Let's listen to the Maniacs again.
Isn't the type of guy, isn't it? Like Gavin said earlier, I just think in Lennon's mind, no, it wouldn't matter who he was playing against. Probably those Old Firm games in those seasons, he would have believed that they lost
I think
fair and
that's
square.
that,
Do you know what I mean?
Not long ago, that basically you go out and you play your football in the park, and if you win, you win. If you don't, you don't.
I think we have to get beyond titles. Not that my team ever win any, but I think we need to get beyond titles now and just try and move this on and find a compromise. Because it's going on too long. The season's about to start, and are we going to start a season without Rangers?
Well, you know, you would think not, Jim, but the way that everything else has panned out, I mean, seriously, would anybody have thought 3 months ago that Rangers would be playing in the 3rd division?
Yeah, and also you've got to factor in Charles Green as well. We still don't know what he's doing.
No.
And there's another guy, Craig Mathers, isn't he, from which is effectively a sports agency, I think. Maybe doing a bit of service, and he's saying, I've got 10% of Rangers for £1 million. I mean, they're throwing bits of it away for loose change, basically. Now, if this continues, anybody who really wants to get rid of Charles Green and build this club up again is going to have to negotiate with a posse of people who own a wee bit here and a wee bit there, and you'll never get that club.
Rangers were sold for £1 and then for £2. And All they seem to be worried about is nobody will ever get this club back again. I believe with all of my heart that if Rangers fans had done what Celtic fans did in the Fergus McCann era, they would already own Glasgow Rangers. Celtic fans put their money where their mouths were. Personally, I didn't have the money to invest in Celtic, and it's a shame that I didn't. I had other things that were essential, and essential to me at that particular time was not to have shares in a football club. But the fact is, Rangers had that chance. Glasgow Rangers could have easily, or fans could easily have helped David Murray by submitting themselves and accepting their responsibility to help him out. Instead of that, they just kept putting their hands out and saying, give us more, give us more. We want these big signings. And because he knew what he was playing with, some people might say that he was forced into the position to bring players in on strange contracts, shall we say. I'm not saying that David Murray thought this was illegal. If David Murray had thought this was illegal, I don't think he would have done it. But Mr. Porn King, who sold him the idea, has stated that he taught David Murray and Rangers and Murray International Holdings what to do, and they did something different. My concern isn't just about the finances at Rangers. My concern is about a century of corruption. And I will never drop the pledge theory. It's actually not a theory, it's a fact. Rangers did in fact pledge the club to the Masons. They were proud of it. That pledge was public. And they were proud that they wouldn't get caught. So they went out and they hired Orangemen and Masonic supporters. And we all know that there are lots of good things done in the Masons. I'm a Latter-day Saint. There are loads of Masons in the Mormon church. We're not Mormons, guys. We're Latter-day Saints. You call us Mormons. There are loads of Masons within the LDS church. Joseph Smith tried to take the gospel to the Freemasons. It has been stated on the Daily Record that Joe Smith was murdered for giving shakes to the Mormons. Great admission. There's long been a discussion between myself and Davy Craig and Paisley that Joseph Smith was murdered by the wonderful people of his locality. Anyway, let's get on to this podcast again. Let's hear what they're saying next.
All this, and shouldn't it? Is that a possibility?
Would it not be
Well, it's a
better?
possibility.
I just wonder what the end game is for Charles Green. He's always been up front and said, look, I'm in it. You know, he wants the short term, he wants to make money, and then he'll move on. But I mean,
Well, his plan's messed up now. Then,
no,
hasn't
but it
it?
was the same with Craig White. We kept saying, oh, what is the end game? Where does it end? And I can't see where the attraction is for Charles Green. I mean, he must have known there was a chance he could end up in the lower league, but it's not attractive.
Would it not make more financial sense for Charles Green just to bite the bullet for 2 or 3 years? Will it not be worth far more if he can get him back into the SPL, get European football again?
But Rangers fans have been shouting about, protesting about the sanctions, but the guy who claims to be acting in their interests hasn't said a word.
I believe with all my heart that Craig White wanted very much to lead Rangers to and through administration. I think that Craig would have loved to have owned Rangers, and while he may not have had the personal wealth that was required, he knew he would get backing, although I don't think that the old Rangers board were even prepared to give him a chance, because as soon as they signed the papers, the old board of Old Co Rangers came out and started shooting this guy in the heart, and in doing so they shot themselves in the foot. I think it's the same for the current owner. Imagine forgetting his name. But Charles Green came in here and he wanted to save Rangers for the fans. He's asking every Rangers fan in the world to help him to save Rangers. But he's saying to them, I cannot do this without your money. If you love this club as much as you say, come in with the finances. Buy shares in the club. Invest £1 million, invest £500,000, invest 50 quid, invest whatever you can, and you will ultimately own the club. He's trying to put them in a position where no individual will own the club. But the only thoughts in the hearts of the Rangers fan is to make sure that the Blues own the club. It must be someone Rangers minded. What in goodness name is Rangers minded? Except those people who gloat and say, we cheated and got away with it. Al McCandless, guys like you. Stevie Blue, guys like you. We cheated and got away with it. Peter Lywell is working for us. Mr. Lawwell was hired by Celtic, is paid by Celtic, and he works closer to the line of integrity than anybody would at Ibrox Park. Let's get back to the numpties on the podcast.
A short now. Strip them of the titles and trophies?
No.
No.
Strip them of the titles and the trophies? No. 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 Why not strip them of the titles and the trophies? They cheated. Match officials robbed Dunfermline of a 4-1 victory against Rangers in the middle of the season. If we just look at that one match and change the result to a 4-1 victory for Dunfermline, Hibs would have been in serious trouble going into the last day of the season. It wouldn't have helped Rangers on their way to winning the league, but we do know that the match officials have done their very best over the last 3 years to make sure that Rangers got to the Champions League and got the money that they required. This is Robert Hutton, CEO of the Shadow of Yale Policy Centre in New Haven, Connecticut, saying, beware, Scots, beware, football lovers. We're still not scratching the surface, because under that surface is the pledge, and the pledge is the answer to everything.